Welcome to you all. This is the Great Books course hosted by Ubiquity University. In September, we started our discussion on this wonderful book, The Prophet, by Khalil Gibran. Before we actually immerse ourselves into this wonderful book, the second part of it, I would like to summarize just for a few minutes what we discussed last time. And also a little bit of an apology beforehand. Hungary is quite cold right now, so heating started. And as you know, when heating starts, everything was so dusty. So I may have a little bit of a croaky voice, and I'm sorry for that in advance. So let me get my notes, and let's start. So in our first lecture, we were exploring how Gibran in The Prophet was able to successfully condensing philosophical ideas to their basics and emphasizing the importance of human conduct and connections. We discovered through his sermons that the core messages are unity and oneness, as well as human beings are an integral part of nature, within which there is an entire soul distributed in partial souls, and God rests in the mind and moves in the air. The Prophet advised us on love, the balance of intimacy and independence in healthy relationships. Love demands complete commitment, attesting in the sacred fires, if one is to see into one's own heart and have knowledge of life's heart. His guidance on marriage was that a true marriage gives both people space to develop their individuality in the same way that the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. He cautioned parents that children are not like a commodity to be possessed, but their souls to be let free, and pointed out that parents are misguided if they want the offspring to follow their paths as opposed to follow the children's own journey. The Prophet also lectured us on the essence of giving, indicating that only when one gives of him or herself does one truly give. Those who give with joy are rewarded with joy. Those who give with pain are immersed in that pain. Those who give with none of these motivations make God smile on the earth. It is good to give when asked, but it is better to give when unasked, open-handedly, withholding nothing. The Prophet wishes people could live on fragrance and air, but humans must kill to eat. He recognizes that. Therefore, killing should be an act of worship, and the killer must understand that he too will be consumed someday by a mightier hand. People think of work as a curse, the Prophet says, but in doing your work, you fulfill a part of Earth's furthest dream, assigned to you when the dream was born. Through work, you express your love for whoever will benefit from it and satisfy your own need to create. Those who enjoy their work know that it is a secret to a fulfilled and meaningful life. Few realize, the Prophet says, that suffering is the means to heal ourselves, the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Consider the next time you are in a state of sorrow that it may have been self-chosen at some level of your being to bring about an enlargement of yourself. Without struggles, we would learn very little about life. The Prophet warns humans about the attachment to their houses and belongings, as in his view, they erode the strength of the soul. Gibran worships nature and wishes humans can retreat to the countryside away from the urban living conditions where streets and walls, walls divide humans. For Gibran, nature was invested with a life of its own, with spiritual, emotional, and intellectual dimension. For him, it was the link that binds us one to another, within it flowing a divine energy, which is the perfect expression of the internal rhythm of all being. To commune with nature was for him akin to religious experience. Al-Mustafa declares that clothing conceals beauty, but fails to hide ugliness. The vanity about clothes can never disguise the true nature of one's true self. Clothes may offer privacy, but that in turn could become constrictive. Wouldn't it be pleasant not to need clothes to cover ourselves, but to feel the sun and the wind on our skin? Gibran's freedom is philosophical. It is not about happiness and wealth, but rather a sense of social justice and national responsibility, where solidarity provides the basis. By the words of the prophet, he declared that justice is Lord's enactment and not the laws that are man-made. The latter is always in conflict with the laws of nature. And now, let's go into part one. The prophet likens the soul to a battlefield in which our reason and passion seem eternally opposed. Yet, it does not do much good to fight them either, he declares. You have to be a peacemaker, loving all your warring elements before you can heal yourself. The prophet tries to convey that the lives we lead on earth represent only a fraction of our larger selves. We all have giant selves inside us, but we have to first recognize that such selves may exist. In your longing for your giant self lies your goodness, the prophet says. In pursuit of self-knowledge, therefore, we are looking for the best in ourselves. So let's hear his words. Your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights, but your ears thirst for the sound of your heart's knowledge. You would know in words that which you have always known in thought. You would touch with your fingers the naked body of your dreams. And it is where you should. The hidden wellspring of your soul must needs rise and run murmuring to the sea, and the treasure of your infinite depths would be revealed to your eyes. But let there be no scales to weigh your unknown treasure, and seek not the depth of your knowledge with staff or sounding line. For self is a sea, boundless and measureless. Say not, I have found the truth, but rather, I have found a truth. Say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path. For the soul walks upon all paths. The soul walks not upon a line, neither does it grow like a reed. The soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals. A teacher asks Mustafa to talk about teaching, and he says that one can reveal only that which is dormant in people's knowledge. A teacher is just a presence to inspire in you that which is latent, to allow you to recognize yourself. Teachers should convey most of all faith and lovingness and guide students towards the opening of the learner's own mind. The Prophet advocates a subjective understanding of all knowledge as opposed to taking the teachers in blind faith. No man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. The teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and his lovingness. If he is indeed wise, he does not bid you enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own mind. The astronomer may speak to you of his understanding of space, but he cannot give you his understanding. The musician may sing to you of the rhythm which is in all space, but he cannot give you the ear which arrests the rhythm, nor the voice that echoes it. And he who is versed in the science of numbers can tell of the regions of weight and measure, but he cannot conduct you thither. For the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. And even as each one of you stands alone in God's knowledge, so must each one of you be alone in his knowledge of God and in his understanding of the earth. One of the biggest lessons I have learned about being the friend that my friends deserve is that I have to put myself out there. It is the exposure of the self, not the protection, that creates meaning. Rivalry between friends is counter-effective, whereas sharing laughter, love, and support are great foundations to a flourishing friendship. Your friend is your needs answered. He is your field, which you sow with love and reap with thanksgiving. And he is your board and your fireside. For you come to him with your hunger, and you seek him for peace. Without words in friendship, all thoughts, all desires, all expectations are born and shared with joy that is unclaimed. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, for that which you love most in him may be clear in his absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. And let your best be for your friend. If he must know the ebb of your tide, let him know its flood also. For what is your friend that you should seek him with hours to kill? Seek him always with hours to live. For it is his to fear your need, but not your emptiness. And in the sweetness of friendship, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. For in the dew of little things, the heart finds its morning and is refreshed. The Prophet also explains that the motivation of talking to a friend should be guided by a higher wisdom that springs from the heart. When you meet your friend on the roadside or in a marketplace, let the spirit in you move your lips and direct your tongue. Let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear. For his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered, when the color is forgotten and the vessel is no more. The Prophet was written in the era when Albert Einstein's revolutionary views of time and space were published, although we do not know whether Gibran was influenced by Einstein's works. He draws attention to how we perceive time, like hours and seasons, for example. However, he explains that the soul's path is timeless in a measureless dimension where love is like time, whole and continuous. You would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. You would adjust your conduct and even direct the course of your spirit according to hours and seasons. Of time, you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch its flowing. Yet, the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness and knows that yesterday is but today's memory and tomorrow is today's dream. And is not time even as love is, undivided and paceless? According to the Prophet, you cannot ask for anything in prayer because God already knows your deepest needs. As God is our main need, so we should not pray for other things, but ask for more of God. For what is prayer but the expansion of yourself into the living ether? And if it is for your comfort to pour your darkness into space, it is also for your delight to pour forth the downing of your heart. And if you cannot but weep when your soul summons you to prayer, she should spur you again and yet again, though weeping, until you shall come laughing. When you pray, you rise to meet in the air those who are praying at that very hour, and whom, save in prayer, you may not meet. Therefore, let your visit to that temple invisible be for naught but ecstasy and sweet communion. I cannot teach you how to pray in words. God listens not to your words save when He Himself utters them through your lips. And I cannot teach you the prayer of the seas and the forests and the mountains. But you who are born of the mountains and the forests and the seas can find the prayer in your heart. A hermit on his annual visit to town asks about pleasure. And Al-Mustafa says, it is a freedom song, but not freedom. The blossoming of one's desires, but not their fruit. A depth calling to a height, but neither the deep nor the high. A caged bird flying, but not a space encompassed. Al-Mustafa wishes people would sing the freedom song wholeheartedly without losing their hearts in the singing. He says pleasure should be bidirectional. Each involved should experience equal delight in the exchange. And now, you ask in your heart, how shall we distinguish that which is good in pleasure from that which is not good? Go to your fields and your gardens, and you shall learn that it is pleasure of the bee to gather honey of the flower. But it is also the pleasure of the flower to yield its honey to the bee. For to the bee, a flower is a fountain of life, and to the flower a bee is a messenger of love. And to both bee and flower, the giving and the receiving of pleasure is a need and an ecstasy. People of Orphalese, be in your pleasures like the flowers and the bees. A poet asks about beauty, and Al-Mustafa asks, how can one find beauty except by making beauty one's way and guide? One cannot speak of beauty unless beauty is the weaver of one's speech. The injured and the distressed say, beauty is kind and gentle, like a young mother half shy of her glory. The passionate disagree and say that beauty is a thing of might and dread, like a storm. The tired and the weary say beauty whispers softly to their spirit and yields to silence. The restless claim to have heard beauty shouting in the mountains with the sounds of the wild beasts. At night, watchmen say beauty, we rise with the dawn. At noon, workers and sailors say they have seen beauty leaning over the earth from the windows of the sunset. Beauty is not a need, but an ecstasy. It is not a mouth thirsting, nor an empty hand stretched forth, but rather a heart inflamed and a soul enchanted. It is not the image you would see, nor the song you would hear, but rather an image you see, though you close your eyes, and a song you hear, though you shut your ears. It is not the sap within the furrowed bark, nor a wing attached to a claw, but rather a garden forever in bloom and a flock of angels forever in flight. People of Orphalese, beauty is life when life unveils her holy face. But you are life and you are the veil. Beauty is eternity gazing at itself in a mirror. But you are eternity and you are the mirror. Lastly, Al-Mitra asked the prophet about death, who magnifies the notion that life and death are recurring events. Al-Mustafa is ready to return where he came from. The ship acts as a carrier, sailing him to the next step in his soul's journey. Gibran correlates river to life and ocean to death. How shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? The owl whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day cannot unveil the mystery of light. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. Rivers flow like life, whereas an ocean is mysteriously deep. The river or a stream symbolizes the progressive nature of life that approaches towards the boundless nature of the sea. Whether the flow of life is fast or slow, that depends on the subjective way of one's living. In some of you, that longing is a torrent rushing with might to the sea, carrying the secrets of the hillsides and the songs of the forests. Gibran describes death as a mother, therefore life must be considered as a child. A child seeks comfort and nurturing in a mother's arms and returns there for her love. The river is like a playing child, whereas the ocean is a calm mother, and a mother awaits her child to return. He saw the pilot of his ship standing by the helm and gazing now at the full sails and now at a distance. And he said, patient, ever patient is the captain of my ship. The wind blows and restless are the sails. Even the rudder begs direction. Yet quietly, my captain awaits my silence. And these, my mariners, who have heard the choir of the greater sea, they too have heard me patiently. Now they shall wait no longer. I am ready. The stream has reached the sea, and once more the great mother holds her son against her breast. For Gibran, death is a vital phase of the soul's path and suggests that we should not grieve at our loved one's grave, but rather celebrate what they gave us. There are no graves here. These mountains and plains are a cradle and a stepping stone. Whenever you pass by the field where you have laid your ancestors, look well thereupon, and you shall see yourselves and your children dancing hand in hand. Verily, you often make merry without knowing. The prophet explains the concept of death as freedom, and dying is freeing oneself to find refuge in God. In the first chapter, he said, "You vast sea, sleeping mother, who alone are peace and freedom to the river and the stream." And at the section of death, he said the following: "For what is it to die, but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing, but to free the breath from its restless tides, and it may rise and expand and see God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountain top, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance." For Gibran, death is harvesting what one has sown in life. It is a journey, a departure point with a destination. As the evening falls, our Mitra signals that the intercharge has ended by blessing the day, the city, and Al-Mustafa's sage words. He states that he got from them just as much he provided. The crowd follows Al-Mustafa tearfully to the docks, where he delivers a moving and lengthy farewell oration, thanking and encouraging the people he has loved and tried to serve, justifying his methods and urging them to seek excellence in all things and wait patiently for the hidden things in life to be fully revealed. Al-Mustafa remains encouraging, challenging, hopeful, and above all, enigmatic to the end, promising a little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me, says the prophet, as Al-Mitra alone remains to watch the empty sea. People of Orphalese, the wind bids me leave you. Less hasty am I than the wind, yet I must go. We wanderers, ever seeking the lonelier way, begin no day where we have ended another day, and no sunrise finds us where sunset left us. Even while the earth sleeps, we travel. We are the seeds of the tenacious plant. And it is in our ripeness and our fullness of heart that we are given to the wind and are scattered. Here is a beautiful metaphor of the circles of life. The mist that drifts away at dawn, leaving but dew in the fields, shall rise and gather into a cloud and then fall down in rain. Reassurance about oneself comes from the prophet by these wise words. Like a giant oak tree covered with apple blossoms in the vast man in you, his might binds you to the earth, his fragrance lifts you into space, and in his durability, you are deathless. You have been told that, even like a chain, you are as weak as your weakest link. This is but half the truth. You are also as strong as your strongest link. To measure you by your smallest deed is to reckon the power of ocean by the frailty of its foam. To judge you by your failures is to cast blame upon the seasons for their inconsistency. And reassurance about oneself comes from the prophet by these words. Oh, bye-bye. I lost it. The veil that clouds your eyes shall be lifted by the hands that wove it, and the clay that fills your ears shall be pierced by those fingers that netted it. And you shall see, and you shall hear, yet you shall not deplore having known blindness, nor regret having been deaf. For in the day you shall know the hidden purposes in all things. Gibran is a believer of the unity of all religions. He advocates that God is in everywhere and humans are inside God's heart and all humans' deeds are godly. He believes in the God-self aspect of all human beings where each person has an undefiled God-self. Here are some examples of how, when, and where one finds God. In a section of love, he says, when you love, you should not say God is in my heart, but rather I am in the heart of God. In a section of marriage, he says, you shall be together even in a silent memory of God. In a section of work, he says, when you work with love, you bind yourself to yourself and to one another and to God. In a section of crime and punishment, he says, like the ocean is your God self. It remains forever undefiled. And like the ether, it lifts but the wind. Even like the sun is your God self. In a section of reason and passion, he says, among the hills, when you sit in the cool shade of the white poplars, sharing the peace and serenity of distant fields and meadows, then let your heart say in silence, God moves in passion. And when the storm comes, and the mighty wind shakes the forest, and the thunder and lightning proclaim the majesty of the sky, then let your heart say in awe, God moves in passion. And since you are a breath in God's sphere and a leaf in God's forest, you too should rest in reason and move in passion. In a section of religion, he says, this for God and this for myself. And if you would know God, be not therefore a solver of riddles. Rather, look about you and you shall see him playing with your children. And look into space, you shall see him walking in the cloud, outstretching his arms in the lightning and descending in rain. You shall see him smiling in flowers, then rising and waving his hands in trees. Al-Mustafa urges the people to see, even in life's negative aspects, some spark of good. And he urges the people, young, old, and middle-aged, rich and poor, male and female, to appreciate the unity of life under God and behave accordingly. Taken as a whole, Gibran's book is a metaphor for the mystery of life. We come into the world and go back to where we came from. As the prophet readies himself to board his ship, it is clear that his words refer not to his journey across the seas, but to the world he came from before he was born. His life now seems to him like a short dream. The book suggests that we should be glad of the experience of coming into the world, even if it is sometimes seems full of pain, because after death we shall see that life had a pattern and a purpose, and that what seems to us now as good and bad will be appreciated without judgment as good for our souls. Understanding Gibran's ideology, belief, wisdom, and philosophy about different aspects of life brings hope to living peace and spiritual personal freedom. The prophet's seemingly utopian city portrays a particular image of a world not yet in existence. It is free from dogmatism, celebrates love, solidarity, and mutual understanding derived from the principles of all religions, whereby God is the source of love. The prophet also teaches that the separation we feel from other people and all forms of life while on earth is not real. We are expressions of a greater unity now forgotten. As he looks forward to his journey, Al-Mustafa likens himself to a boundless drop in a boundless ocean. To feel yourself to be a temporary manifestation of an infinite source is greatly comforting and perhaps accounts for the feeling of peace and liberation many experiences in reading the prophet. Well, this is for me the second part of this amazing book. I must say that I have found so much peace and wisdom in it. And now I would love to hear from you. What was your best part of this book? And could you summarize it? Now, if you'd like to share your comments or views with us, would you please put your hand up so that Georg could bring you in? anybody who would be interested from our lovely students. I can see some of our doctoral students. Who would like to speak first? Zara, let's hear from you. Zara, are you there? Okay. Hi, Zara. Zara,
Well,
would you like to speak?
you are unmuted, Zara. Can you say something?
Zara, would you like to share your comments with us? Or would you like
Can I
to...
get to me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening.
Hello, nice to hear from you. Tell us
Yes,
what you think about the prophet.
Okay. Prior to now, I've seen the book because I try to engage myself in books a lot. So I was at this at a bookstore called the Father's Bookshop in Nigeria, and then I saw the book, but then I don't know why I didn't go for it. So I went for some other books. But then now when the book was to be discussed in the panel, I I had to download the audio book and then download the book itself and read it. And I realized that it is the second most incredible book I have ever read in my life, and the audiobook I've ever listened to, because it addressed things that are truly really important to me as a person personally. I have this thing I call life systems. That's the things that are most important to you in your life. Those are the things that make up your life system. And the book, the prophet itself, addresses all those for me. First, love, marriage, children, and work, because these are the things that I consider really important, and in relationships generally. The book explains it in such a way that it's opening my eyes. It's less than a week that I've gotten the book, and I'm still processing it. But then, in what I've learned so far in listening to the book, the audio book, and reading it myself, I realized that the prophet breaks down those life systems for me in the easiest way, in the most selfless way, in the way that I can understand and then live all these things that he has outlined, and based on the questions that were asked about love, marriage, and all those uh, questions that people asked him before he left. It addressed it so easily for me, and then so down to earth for me in such a way that in the coming weeks and as time goes by, I'll continue reading it and I'll keep listening to it again, and I believe it will unravel a lot of things for me as I go further. But for right now, I think the book is incredible. I'm still soaking it in, and I'll see how it goes from now. But I love how we explained everything, and it's a lot of things is resonating with me, and my eyes are opening to a lot of new things from the book. And I'll just take a back seat now and then listen to all other contributions, because I believe there are other people who have vast knowledge and have delved deeper into the book than I have. So I will just listen to what you guys have to say, and I'll grow from it from there.
Thank you, Zara. Stay for another couple of minutes if you don't mind. I really appreciate what you shared with us, and it's really interesting that this is the first time you actually heard about. You didn't actually read the book before joining to this seminar, and so you had like a fresh plate to receive these wise words. Was there any particular part of what you heard today jumped out that was like you could summarize in a sentence at all? Because I know it is really a difficult question. I asked this question myself, and it's really hard to pinpoint. But maybe you could. Maybe it was a different experience for you.
Okay, there's this place on the first answer for the love question that was asked. There was this response he gave. I'm trying to look at it right now. It says, I think I can paraphrase it. It says, love response to love is something like that. But then I can't really. 1 minute, I'll just check it as soon as I can.
When love beckons to you, follow him.
No, not that. There was a place that love. I'm just trying to. I'm trying to find it, but then.
Is it that even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you?
No, there was a place. There was a statement he made in the first in the topic about love that. Okay, for love is sufficient unto love. I think it's it gives a very big balance to what love is supposed to be. I think our society today is basing love on the wrong metrics, and many people are fallen victim of that because they don't get the will I say the principle behind what love truly is. And he says it states here clearly that for love is sufficient unto love. Many people want to give something that kind of looks like love, but then it is not. It unexpected the results that love gives to while not giving what love requires. So I think, and we're seeing the trend where many relationships are falling now because I believe personally that these relationships are failing because people don't understand the real concept of love. Many people are just giving what they can give in so that they can get what love is in its entirety for the little they give, and then what most of them give is just a little bit of what is expected of them in love. So personally, I think that the first chapter, I think it's even the most important thing in life itself, because if it's like garbage in, garbage out. If you don't give as much as is expected, don't expect to receive anything much. It's like the law of sowing and reaping. Whatever you sow, you reap. And then this statement that love is sufficient unto love itself is the same. It works on the same principle. If you give the same a measure of love, it will come right back to you in many ways that in the amount that you have given. And then one thing about the of sowing and harvest is that if you sow in something, it comes back in manifold. And even though love is sufficient unto love, it comes back with even more on your own part. And then when you get to receive those extras from love based on what you've sown in it, it will teach you more about giving more love out, because when you give more out, when you give, more will definitely come out. When you sow and then you take time to prune, to take care of to plow and all that, more comes back in return. So I believe that's what I got from it.
Yeah, thank you. It's wonderful to hear your expression of love. It is true that when you read a book like that, the understanding of the messages are very subjective. And what I found that as many times I read the book just to prepare the notes for this lecture and the last one, I was going deeper and deeper in my understanding of myself and how I felt about love and marriage and relationship and giving and friendship and freedom. So it's really interesting that it would be great to hear how you feel after you have read the book and listened to it as an audiobook, because it really does have, it does start some domino effect in your consciousness. That's what I experienced anyway.
Right,
So
right.
Because it's so clear and succinct, yet it's so profound in many ways.
True. That's very true.
Yeah, but thank you, Zara, and thank you for joining us. And see you next month as well after this lecture, and I will introduce the next speaker. But before that, let's hear from our fresh and new doctoral student, Song. Thank you for putting your hand up. We're ready to hear from you. Hi, Song. Can you hear us well?
Please unmute, Song.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have some questions. I'm not clear about I does I represent Mustafa? The narrator, I. Yes, I don't know. I'm not clear about the relationship like I and Mustafa. Yes, the prophet. No, but I didn't find the I, the Mustafa in the book. Also, what's the relationship between this book with the Quran, Muslim description?
I think I'm missing some of the words of yours. The line is not the best. So did I understand you clear saying that you're not clear about the distinction or the definition between the I and which part? Hi, great to see you. Which part do you refer in the book? Could you actually quote the exact line from the book that is not quite clear to you?
You mentioned Mustafa, you said Mustafa, but the prophet, what's the relationship with I, the I in the book and the prophet and Mustafa?
Al-Mustafa. Al-Mustafa is the name of the prophet.
Yeah, yes. So, okay. Then, what's this book? What's the prophet and the connection with this book?
Oh, the Quran. Yeah, no, I can see that. Well, that's a good question. I can't answer that. In this particular book, Khalil Gibran, the author of the book, he is conveying all his messages through this person he calls the prophet. So it is not necessarily the same prophet you actually read in the Quran, right? So I don't think that is the same entity or the same person. It is actually a prophet, a messenger, right, who conveys wisdom and messages to other people, and he put it all in a scenery of a small little village whereby people live, and he spends 12 years with them, and after that he leaves and he conveys these oratory messages while others asking questions from him. So I think these two persons are definite. He did not emphasize that this is the same prophet as it appears in the Quran.
So it's more about Gibran's beautiful description about the divine word. So the book is very, very beautiful. The prophet. So it's more about Gibran's explanation for the prophet, for the beautiful word. Yeah, he gives us so much light. So yeah, every time when I spend time with the book, I feel so happy and so bright.
Yes.
So it's his beautiful work.
Yes, beautiful work. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you remember, we were talking about last time in September that Khalil Gibran, he was really interweaving his Western and Eastern understanding of life and wisdom. So he was not adhering to any particular religion. His religion was God, and that's what comes across in the prophet. The last segment that I read out, that in every single sermon there is a very deep incantation of where God is and how one recognizes it and how one notices it and so forth. So there is no particular religion denoted in this book, and that's why he didn't want to give a title to this wise person apart from the best one is a prophet, because a prophet is not really tied to any particular religion or wisdom tradition.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. And I can see several hands up. John Jeanette. Hello, John.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning to you.
Well, it's morning for me.
Yeah, almost evening for me. Tell us, what would you like to share?
I really appreciate the way that we've gone on a journey with this book, because it's my third time through. My first time was as a teenager, and of course I, danced around the room hearing that your children are not your children. I thought,
yeah,
this is what I need to hear, that my independence from my parents is necessary and true. And then the second time that I went through it was when I was a parent, and I learned a different lesson, because I was still understanding that my children were not my children, but I was trying to be the archer, guiding them to a certain place. And the book reminded me that I was merely the bow, that the archer is God, that you can help propel your children into the world, but you can't really choose their path.
Yeah.
And that was another powerful lesson. And now, in my elder years, having been in the fundraising field for 30-some years, I made a transformation there that relates to the book in a very powerful way. And that is, when I started in fundraising, it was all about the institutions that I was raising money for. We need you. We're not meeting our budget. It was all about the institution. And as I matured, I learned that it was really about the donor, to be able to say to the donor, look what you can accomplish by supporting this institution. Look at how you can express your own values about conservation or the arts or whatever it might be. This institution is here carrying out your values. And so how that relates to the book is I'm really struck on this third time around by the joy of giving. In society and in relationships, the flower and the bee is a wonderful analogy, because you think there's some sacrifice on the part of the flower, but it isn't at all. It's very fulfilling for the flower to yield the honey to the bee. And I think we sometimes think that giving involves some kind of sacrifice, when in fact it's a joyous experience. Receiving is joyous as well, and that's the beauty of it, is that there's joy in both the giving and receiving. So it's taken me a while in life to understand that, but it's really, really resonating very strongly with me on this third time around.
Thank you. I would like to comment on the first part you said about the children. I remember that when I first read it, I had the same thing, the same feeling that, yeah, this is what I've been saying to my parents, come on. And then, of course, when you become a parent, you experience what it is like. And as you said, I so agree with you. And in terms of giving, yes, we love giving and we love receiving, yet the prophet said that gives open-handedly without all those actually feelings almost. Like there is even a higher realm, a higher understanding, a greater understanding of giving. So that force for me, I was pondering on that for some time in order to understand it, because it gives me so much joy to give and also to receive.
Yeah.
But you need to evolve to a different level in that regard. So that's so wonderful that about any art, be it a book or a painting or music or anything, that it gives you that inspiration, that it starts that thought process, and you start thinking about some of your conceptions and your value system, and you realign those, and that's the inspiration of any art, isn't it? Besides other aspects to art.
And sometimes the way that he phrases things is so counterintuitive. For example, when he says in the chapter on giving that you deserve to be a giver. What? What do you mean I deserve to receive, don't I? You deserve to be a giver. That's where you're missing that joy if you don't take part in that. So sometimes there's a line or two that I just get stuck on. I have to reflect on them, and part of my process is setting things to music. Other people might journal, make a journal entry. For me, I might explore it as a piece, as a lyric, and I might just have to set some of this to music, like the clay and the veil and the clay. That part about how we're the ones that we make the veil, we put it on. We're the ones that take it off. I thought, oh, there's a song in there.
Oh yeah, do it, John. Do it. If you want to hear it, please.
Yeah.
Please. Once you finished it, just put it on our platform, because I'm sure it will be wonderful. And
well, it might never be finished, but thank you.
No, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your comments. Thank you. Now we have Laura Madsen. Let's hear from you, dear.
Unmute, start video. There we go.
Yay, hello.
There I am. Hello.
Hello.
This has been so heartwarming. Our power went out last night. I had to look for a cafe, went to one, they didn't have internet, came here, and it's like, there was a part of me just determined to be on this call. So I know why, because it's just, I'm sitting beside a fire with my heart glowing. This book, your presentation and people's contribution, and it was lovely to see John. Whoops, sorry. Yeah, I'm having too much going on here on my screen. But I just wanted to make a quick addition. I lost my book. I had The Prophet for years. It was on my shelf. And yeah, it's odd. I went to get it for this, in preparation for this course. And it's, I don't know. I must have loaned it. I can't imagine I did. But anyway, that's sort of an oddity. But that book, like many of us are saying, I had a friend give me that poem about the children. Mm-hmm. They're not your own, at the exact right time. I think I was 16 and really doing, that with my dad. And it was such a huge relief. It was like, oh, maybe that's why I'm fighting so much, because that's not recognized. If that could just be, if I could just have more space. And so what I'm hearing in The Prophet, and we also had it read at our wedding 26 years ago, about the trees, the oak and the spruce trees. So standing beside each other and not crowding each other. So there's so many beautiful spiritual ideals in The Prophet, and I'm so interested in our process of how to, and I hear it happening in some of the shares. There's a transmission from this book, and I'm actually writing my final paper on Shanti Deva, on the way of the Bodhicitta, that the book we read a couple of times ago. And that's what it's basically on, is transmission and attunement. So I feel like there's so much transmission from this book, and there's an attuning process, because we already know all this stuff inside. There's a real resonant yes that I feel and other people are feeling, and I feel that's our ability to attune. And I think we're of us are transitioning into this different state of being where we actually live through these truths. So they begin to come deeper and deeper and deeper. And that to me is so, it's just so, it's beyond hopeful, because it's just another, it's another way of being. It truly is. It's like a new way. And I feel that he was ahead of his time, like so many prophets. They're on the crest of a wave. I think you said that in the first presentation. And I listened to that. I couldn't join it because I was away. But I just wanted to just jump in and say thank you. And I feel so it's really all I needed to say.
Oh, thank you so much, Lord. Thank you. So appreciate it. So appreciate that you sharing your feelings with us. It's interesting that before the session started, my internet was just gone. And I was like frantically like having like 160, my blood pressure. And I was like, So I was calling the internet company and said, well, yes, in your district where you are in a city, there is no internet at all. And I was like, well, thank you. And at this stage, I really don't care about anybody else but myself, because I need to do this. So I was phoning around for my parents and friends and everybody. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to say my mantra. And I was saying my white Tara behind me. And I know she always helps me out. And just right on time, internet came back. So yeah, I feel you. Thank you very much for finding a place where you could access internet, and also it's interesting that you don't know where your book is. But I'm sure at the right time you will find it, and it is so true that how and what subjective feelings, experience gives us. We all have different experiences. Through this book, and that's what it should be. And it, as I said at the end, it gives us so much encouragement and hope. And I do look at the flowers and so many other beauty around me in a different way, having read this or reread this book so many times. And as you said, even though we know all this already, I think we need to be reminded again and again and again, and this is one way of reminding us that what it is important in life and how we should lead it. Whether you call it God or super consciousness, but there is some greater meaning to our lives that we may not realize through our mundaneness of the day-to-day lives. And I think this just kind of like takes us out, rips us out from that mundaneness and shows us a different mirror. And it says we are the mirror and we are the veil and the mirror. So it's like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
So thank you, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's hear from Vivian. Hello, Vivian. So nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. This is great to see everybody. I love this book. I have it. I'm downloaded it from the Gutenberg.org, a free version of it. So I have it, the text version, and I also have Audible of it. So I've listened to it through several times. It's lovely to listen to. And I too, read it when I was a teenager, and very rebellious teenager.
No way, really?
Oh yeah, me. And Randy and I mentioned it at the end of the last session that Randy and I used it in our wedding revow. We got married, remarried at 29 and holding is what we called it. At 29 years, we've been married 36 years now. But my research that I'm doing is on the extinction of that's what I'm reading about a lot, of extinction of the plants and the animals. And So I focused death. When you were talking about death today, it kind of pulled me in and says, yeah, that's what I want to hear about. So you had said that we're longing for our giant selves, and that's where our goodness lies. And I love that when you said that. And we're alone in our understanding. That just resonated with me a lot today. And so on the chapter on death, that it talks about that something that I just come back to is opening our hearts. I think that's a solution to a lot of the problems that we have, and it's painful, right, to expose ourselves and open our hearts. And the way that I say it is open your heart wide, slap open. That's how I say it, because that's where you'll empathy will come in. It's not, it's not sympathy, it's empathy, that will actually walk in the shoes of another. And this whole thing about extinction, I just love this. It says that for life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. And he talks about, trusting your dreams, for in it is hidden the gates to eternity. And the fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king, whose hand is the one that laid upon him honor. So this whole thing about death is something that I've been, grappling with. I turned 60 in August, and I've, just thinking about it, and just trying to wrap my arms around it. And here it is, it's like, here it is. And at the very last statement that he talks about is a little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. Yeah. So he talks here of reincarnation, right? And that, life just continues. It's a continuum, that death is not final. And in the light of extinction, and thinking about extinction of the plants and animals, there was something at the end of Astronomica that Rick Tarnas talked about that really gave me hope in this also, is that biological life has returned to the planet in light of the past 6 extinctions. It's always come back. So anyway, I'm going pretty deep in some of this stuff, and I really appreciated the part on death.
Yeah, thank you. I must say that for me it was a little bit hard. I think it is because it's such a subject that it's not the most joyous. And I try to really get from that section that I felt the one I wanted to concentrate on, because I have aging parents, and sooner or later I'm going to lose them. And being a Buddhist myself, but I try to gear myself that how I'm going to deal with that. And clearly Gibran's words helped me, that we should rejoice really what they given us, and we follow their path, because that's what it is. Like the prophet just goes to the mother's arm that is symbolized as a sea. And that was really, really beautiful. So it was really, really beautiful for me too, and also I think that I was thinking about this last night. I'm reading a lot of Jung's work, because in January we will have a wonderful webinar on a red book, and with one of the greatest Jungian expert. So I'm preparing myself and reading some of symbolism he talks about, and the great snake, the Ouroboros, and it is all like going back, like like a cycle, the circle, and I wonder whether Gibran actually read some of Jung's stuff, but that's a different topic.
But it has to. You've been studying on the death part of it, I guess. Both of my parents are gone, and and I don't have children, so it's like it's really, I'm really thinking about this a lot. I don't, and especially with extinction. And I used to be very depressed about it. And I told you, Laura and John will attest that, how can this woman say this? Extinction can be fun, so it's like somehow there's just, I feel like I'm, this whole thing about remembering that it's fun to be a drop of water in the ocean. It's like I'm really feeling that. And it's very different. But anyway, that's where I'm at.
Now there are some amazing, beautiful lines in the boundless drop in a boundless ocean. Isn't it just amazing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I am important at the same time. I'm part of all that Laura, John, Song, you, Georg, everybody lives in that field. So
yeah. We're all just on this journey together, trying to wrestle this with, you know, grace as we can, but that's just, so it's beautiful. So it's interesting that, you know, how this poem or this book, you know, has such different meaning to us at different stages of our lives.
Absolutely. That shows our evolution, which is wonderful. Thank you so much, Jieun. So appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Now, Michelle Blair, let's hear from you, Michelle. Yep, you're here. We can't hear you.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Hi, Gyorgyi.
Hello. Hi, great to see you.
It's great to see you. What a wonderful lecture. Thank you. It's amazing how this little book has so much distilled wisdom from so many, I guess, thoughts or different, I don't know, cultures or like you said, the marriage of the East and the West. I could see it just all coming together in so many parts of the book. The one part that really struck out for me is just how he was constantly weaving the spirit and the body, or like as a Western trained woman in this culture, I'm always kind of in this place with the body as being either something you deny or sacrifice, or something you celebrate in even a more extravagant way. So there's always it's like, what do we do with this body thing? And I love where he says, and the part of reason and passion, and he's talking about God rests in reason and God moves in passion, and how your soul is a battlefield. And I started thinking about how there's this battle always between the invisible and the visible world, the body and the spirit, and how do we live that as humans. And then he says about being a peacemaker and lovers of your elements. And that struck me because maybe you think about even the container of religion and morality, and how that is a Western mind that always seeking outside yourself, and how he brings it again back into that your soul is your church, or your soul is where the morality is, not in man-made laws. So there's always, he's weaving constantly throughout the book this, you know, the transcendent or the ether, but then he brings it back into what it's like to be human in this dual existence. And you know, I really appreciate so much of this, because every time I read this, I learn another nugget that I didn't get before. So thank you.
No, thank you, Misha. Misha, if I have a question from you, given that two of the sharers raised the point about the children issue. I know that you recently dropped off your daughter in Paris.
Yes.
So how do you feel that do you having read the book and that part of children are not all children, how do you feel? Do you keep reminding yourself of you being a guide, the teacher, and how do you feel this concept?
I think for me, I've embraced what he talks about with children, that they're not ours. And it's just like the part of being a teacher, that you can't give someone your wisdom. You can give them, so to me, the idea of being a parent and a teacher kind of works together, in that I can love and affirm, and hopefully, you know, this is probably one of the scariest things I've done, is to drop my daughter off across the puddle and know that I don't have a pulse on her like I do when she's living in the same town, and have to really trust that she has everything within her to experience whatever she needs. And that may not always be easy. You know, that may also be painful. And I also appreciate when he talks about, because you know, our kids are going to have pain, and to remember that the pain is kind of homeopathic, that it will maybe, you know, it'll clear some of the soot that we believe defines us or keeps us in those prisons. So as a parent, I just hope that I've exposed her to enough enough understanding of culture and thought processes that will allow her to be her independent self, and not my thoughts, but her own, or my son's thoughts. So not mine. That's hard. I'll admit it. I signed up for this class. You know?
Yes. Well, let's give her one of the Gibran's book. Really, it would be great to hear what a teenager would think about such book. But thank you so much, Michelle, for joining, and really appreciate it.
Good to see everyone. Blessings.
Yeah, great. See you in next time. All right, let's hear from Katie. Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, Gyorgyi.
Hi. Hello. Great to see you.
You too. Yeah, it's so great to see everybody and hear all of these very insightful thoughts and feelings about this book. I'm loving this book. This is the first time I've read this. And though I have read the quote from the chapter about parenting, how our children are not ours. I was always touched by that quote. I heard it years ago and it stayed within me. But I love reading this book. I like reading it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. It's just so nourishing. It's just the very core of truth. As I see it and I feel it and experience it. I don't think that I would have felt this way if I read this book earlier, you know, as a teenager, early in college, undergrad. So I'm so grateful to be reading it now. And in terms of the part so far, I'm only about halfway through the book, but the part so far that's really touched me the most deeply is in the chapter about crime and punishment. And it's a ever-present feeling and thought inside of me right now. It's the gun violence happening in the United States it's taken a toll on me, and as a therapist, I want to understand it better. And so this piece I want to read that he wrote says, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. You are the way and the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him. A caution against the stumbling stone. Just sort of like social learning, we learn from each other. He falls for those ahead of him who, though faster and surer of foot, yet remove not the stumbling stone. And that piece is really the heart of how I feel about this issue, that it's a social issue. It's a responsibility that we all have. It's a responsibility that we have to our community and to our children and to caring for the troubled. And I just, it gives me chills to read it, and it inspires me to do more in my everyday life and wherever I can to help people, you know, identify when to, you know, see that stumbling stone and remove it, and what that means in our current issues that we have in our country and all over the world.
Yeah. I so hear you. Thank you very much for this very important comment. And there were a couple of parts I didn't cover from the book, not because I didn't want to, because I felt that we have a limitedness of the measureless time. But what you brought up is we must really talk about, if nothing for a couple of minutes. And my initial intuition is that it touched you because it's so important to you. So you need to do something with this issue itself, and how you actually would bring it across your community, or just maybe the community, whether it's a Facebook or Instagram or anywhere else. But this really touched you, just something that got into you, and this is probably the flame is firing from this book, that you need to do something about it. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just responding to your words and how I feel as you were talking, because I felt the trembling of your words, and we need torchbearers like yourself to teach us about violence and crime, because we need to hear it really. We need to hear how we should respond, because it's not just the United States. Even here in Europe, there's so much violence in different ways. So there is some deep woundedness and trauma, as we know, but we need to heal it together, and only together we can. So thank you, Katie. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you. Now, Shona, I can see that you put your hand up. Would love to hear from you.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hey.
All right. I've really enjoyed hearing the comments and also everything that you've said, Gyorgyi, and just agree so much with, well, of course I got an email. Just, you know, on each of the speeches that the prophet makes and how touching they are. And that was how I came to the book, because of the speech on marriage came into my life, and that's what originally drew me to the book. And then recently I've wanted to step back from the speeches, because they are so beautiful and I love beauty, and that draws me in. And sometimes I forget, I think about the opening and the ending of the book a little bit. And something that was just coming to me, he writes very close to the beginning, "Long were the days of pain I have spent within its walls, and long were the nights of aloneness. And who can depart from his pain and his aloneness without regret?" And it's 12 years that he's been here. And a little further he says, "Shall the day of parting be the day of gathering?" It's 12 years that he's lived out on this fringe, out in aloneness, processing these things. And it's from this time, and he seems surprised. Shall this day of parting be the day of gathering? That in any way he's welcomed into the group. And it's because of this time, this length of time. And I'd like to look into the symbolism of 12, which I haven't done yet, but that he's able to come into this place and meet with the people when they're finally ready to meet with him. And it's just this, these speeches are so beautiful because they're just a flowing of his being. He didn't prepare them. He didn't expect that. He's just done the journey. He's been doing the walk, and for the last 12 years. And so I've been thinking about the archetype of the prophet and other prophets, like the prophet of the Quran or the prophet of the Torah or the Old Testament, and what a difficult role that is to live in society. Excuse me. And who are those people living that in society currently? What are they experiencing? How would one live that well, so that in this moment where perhaps you're surprised at the gathering, there you are, just being and letting your being, I suppose, flow to those who come to gather with you. And it just touched me. This is again in that first section. And he said, these things he said in words, but much in his heart remained unsaid, for he himself could not speak his deeper secret. And that's the most intriguing lines of the book, because of all the speeches, and you think it's so amazing and incredible and beautiful, and yet there's a deeper secret.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a beautiful, really thought-provoking words, absolutely, by Gibran. I felt the same as well, that as you said, Katie, that the leaving and the gathering, and that's another symbolism for the circles and the cycles of life, because as he's departing, and he's going to the sea, and that's another big gathering, really, in a sense, that he's gathering with those who already passed before him, and he's going back. So it's any beginning and any ending is actually the same, depending from which perspective you're looking at it. So it's just a wealth of beauty in it, in every way. And those people that you were talking about, sometimes when I'm actually seeing people who are shouting or being angry, I just wonder whether they see beauty in a flower or a bird singing, or just the wind blowing on your skin. And I feel for them, that how would I say anything to these people? I would just like to give this book to them, really. Please read it to yourself. So thank you, Shona. Let's read it a few more times, and I'm sure that we will become lighter beings, so that we can light the path of others. And now, Linda White. Please tell us what you think of this book. Hi, Linda. I think we can't hear you. Yes, we can hear you now. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
You started out with words about conduct and connection, and so that really touched me. I was just going to listen today because I got the book, and so I actually read instead and also listened, and I was really struck initially by the artwork, because such a small book, and I started flipping through it, and so his work as an artist really drew me in. And then as I started reading, there was a really deep somatic sense in the words. And I think what I'm most struck by is how thin it is, how, and yet the conciseness and the depth of his words. And so it's this whole flow between the absolute and the relative. And when we talk about life and death and the eternal and all that imagery, I'm struck also by the parallel between his own personal life. And so this morning I started doing the research, and I was going to listen today because I'm like overwhelmed with how much came in with the research. But one of the things that I think relates to what's been shared is that he was actually 12 when he left Lebanon, and his father, it was a tax collection scandal, and he ended up in the ghettos in Boston. And I believe it was like 12 years when he left Boston. And so that parallel between the story that he's written on a more of an etheric, mystical, actually related to his life. And then also, and this is for Vivian, let me get into my smaller screen, the fact that it's in Lebanon and the cedars of Lebanon. And, Vivian was instrumental in planting, Ubiquity's planting of the seed of the cedar of Lebanon, representing Ubiquity University this summer. So this little piece, it says, trees, and particularly the cedars of Lebanon, had a special place in Gibran's heart. Poems that the earth writes upon the sky, we fell them down and turn them into paper that we may record our emptiness. And so I thought of Vivian as I was reading that. And Yeah, let me just, yeah, there was so much. Yeah, but I think overall, when you ask what touched most was the depth that he reaches with such simplicity in his words.
Yeah.
And then hearing everybody on the call and what it's evoked is just, yeah, really, really. And then lastly, in closing, you totally derailed me when you mentioned the Red Book. Because I've been reading it for a while and actually really savoring it. So I'm really excited that, you know, I'm auditing this course, and I will write a paper, but my intention is to audit it. But when you mentioned that, I thought, oh my goodness, that could be the whole PhD dissertation.
Absolutely, yeah, a few PhDs for sure. Well, thank you very much for your comments. I think in September, our first session, if I remember correctly, Susan Vietz mentioned the numerological meaning of the 12.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I will say a few words about the upcoming webinars in a second. But yes, I think it's hard to give just a simple passé to this book because it is so deep. There is no misplaced words. There's nothing that is unusual or not necessary there. It is just a sheer perfection in many ways, isn't it? And I must say that every single time I read it, and as I was preparing for these 2 sessions, that many times I sat down and I was a bit agitated, but it's internet connection or something else. And while just reading through the book, I just became calmer. It was just incredible. So there is that resonance, that vibration within these words that are so special, so coherent and full of love.
Exactly. And also part of the research where I started, it's been translated 104 times. And there's like a whole big section on all the translations, and it's never been out of print, which that in itself is just pretty amazing, you know, that, you know, it's timeless is really what it boils down to.
It is. And it is incredible. It was written 100 years ago, which is yes, it is. But one would have thought it was written maybe 1,000 years ago because it feels that ancient, that archaic. But anyhow, thank you so much for all your comments. And before closing, I'd like to say that although it is not on our website yet, but I'm happy to announce that we have many amazing webinars coming up. There will be an email going to all of you about November. We have a webinar with our graduate, Karen Mary, I think she changed her name, Castle, and Jim Garrison on Inanna or Ainana. That will be in November. Then we have the Red Books 4 sessions webinar in January. Thank you, Georg actually put it in the chat. And we will post all the information about it, the reading list and the text, probably in 2 weeks' time, but put it in your calendar and don't miss it because it will be fantastic. And then mid-March, we'll have another webinar with Anne Baring. And that will be on the 4 traditions: Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and Christianity. So that will be another big avalanche of beauty, sheer beauty. So join us if you can. And just like we did this year with Anne Baring, if you can't, that it will be on a special section of the YouTube. It is not a free webinar, but it will be a very small cost to auditors and to our students. But there are lots of other great courses in a pipeline, which will be on our website, and you will all get notification in the next couple of weeks or so. I so appreciate that you all joined us, and thank you so much for partaking in just discussing Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. I wish you a wonderful day, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.